Say I don't like my spouse when they're around their family.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
I don't like my spouse when they're around their friends.
Right.
Because like you said, they tend to revert back to those old roles or those old ways. And
they show up different.
Yeah, they show up different. And the thing about that is sometimes, we could be so engrossed in dysfunction. And we become so accustomed to dysfunction that we don't realize that it's dysfunctional.
Right.
Everybody, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. This is a podcast where we talk about marriage matters because
marriage matters.
That's what it's all about. If you're watching for the very first time, I am one of your hosts, Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined as always by my delectably beautiful. Is that right? Is that how you say it? Beautiful.
I'm going to let you go with that. Hi, my name's Tanya Coleman.
Okay. I had started the thing where I look up an adjective to describe you. I need to start back. That's my bad. I've been slipping on that.
Okay.
So I'm going to start back on that.
All right.
But anyway, my beautiful wife.
Make sure you know a word is a word.
That's I know. All. My bad. My wife. Did you say your name?
I did. I said my name. I'm Tanya Coleman.
All right.
Y'all heard it again.
Yep. Say it again.
Tanya Coleman.
That's right. You heard it. It needs to be said more than once. Okay. It's such a beautiful name.
Mrs. Tanya Coleman.
Such a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Even though it's spelled uniquely, I just realized when we went to vote that we both had names that are kind of unique. Because the lady was like, she looked at your name on the thing. She was like,
she was afraid to say it.
Tanya. And then he was like, it's Tanya. And then she got to me. I'm like, I'm just Glenn, but it's Glenneth. So she's like, Glennetta? It's Glenneth. So it just dawned on me in that moment. But I was going to tell this quick story that, when I first met Tanya and, we were becoming friends. So she had made up some business cards on her inkjet printer at home. And it was just her name.
I was all about
it. It was her name, Tanya Evans, and then her number below that. Her home phone number. Back then we didn't have cell phones.
Yes, we didn't have cell phones. So why did I have a business card with my number on it? I don't know.
The funny thing was when I got back, I was staying in the dorms at McNeese at the time. But when I got back to my dorm room, I looked at the card and I'm like, man, I thought this chick name was Tanya. Like, I don't know who Tanya is. Anyway, Glenn Coleman, Tanya Coleman, and this is Marriage Matters. So
we welcome you.
So one of the things that we've been doing is kind of recognizing either someone who left us a review, someone who's left us a comment. So I went back through some of our older videos, and I found this comment back when we had our friends on, Rachel and Travis Garner.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Garners.
Hello, Garners.
Garners. I said Gardeners. Garners. I'm sorry. But we're gonna have them back. We gotta have them back on. It was such a great podcast episode. But anyway, during that podcast, we had a comment from Lisa D. Miles, and she said, "This is awesome!" Exclamation point. This is an inspiration to others. Then she said, "To whom it may concern, God bless you. Marriage matters."
Awesome.
So thanks Lisa D. Miles.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Great. We received the blessing of marriage.
We just want to encourage you guys to comment, get involved, join the community, join the conversation, and drop us a line.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So on to the next thing. So one of the things that we've been doing is every week we like to ask ourselves questions.
Oh, yeah. That's me, right?
From the conversation starters. That's okay. From the conversation starters in the Anatomy of Marriage app.
Yes.
And so this is an app that was developed by Seth and
Melanie.
Melanie. I always forget her name. I'm sorry, Melanie.
Why do you do this to her?
I don't know.
Like every week that we've done this.
Not every week. I didn't do it last week.
Every week.
Anyway, hey, Melanie. How you doing? But Seth and Melanie Studley. And it's just a great tool to use just to fire up some great conversations and just to help you dive deeper into your relationship. So I'll let you take it.
So the one that we're going to use today. So there is. I'm sorry. You're going to go to. There's an actual map, and you're going to go into the toolbox, and you will select conversation starters. And this week, I wanted to start with just for fun.
Okay.
And the question that I had before, I want it back.
You don't remember it?
Yes, here it is. If we could do any project together, what would it be?
Any project together.
Any project together, what would it be?
What kind of project? Is it
any project together, what would it be?
Any project together, what would it be? I'm going to say this. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do it, but I think it would maybe be fun.
Okay.
But it's a project we've been talking about doing. Repainting the living room.
Yes.
I'm a little scared of that.
Why? Why are you scared of it?
I don't like to paint.
Why don't you like to paint?
I don't know.
Like you get to roll the paint onto the wall.
I don't know why.
Really? That's a childish response.
I don't like to paint, but I know we need to do it, and I think it'll be something fun to do.
It'll be fun together.
I don't think it's the painting. I think it's the prep and then the cleanup.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So the taping and all of that kind of stuff. All of the edges. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't like.
I usually cannot help with that unless it is the baseboard. So.
Well, you could. No, never mind.
No, because I don't do ladders.
No.
Anymore.
Should we tell the ladder story?
No, we got to. Okay. Come on.
All right.
We're not prolonging the process today.
All right. So my question for you is, if we could travel anywhere together, where would we go and why?
Oh, one of my dreams is to travel to Italy. Together because it looks to be one of the most romantic and beautiful and oldest cities in the world.
Okay.
I just would love to go and appreciate the culture and the arts and the food and all of those things.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool deal. All right, so that's conversation starters.
Conversation starters.
Okay, a little sting there. Put a little sting in there. All right. So thanks again to Seth and Melanie Studley,
yes,
for the Anatomy of Marriage app. And you should also check out their podcast, Anatomy of Us. That's the name of their podcast. And I think their website is thestudleys.com. So if you want to check them out.
Pretty cool couple. Yep. Enjoy all of their content. It's pretty
great.
Yep.
So the next thing we want to talk about is drum roll. So tonight we are doing a masterclass on communication tonight. So
for the masterclass.
Right now it's probably about 6:37-ish, somewhere in there, Central Time. The masterclass will be starting tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Time.
Yes.
So listen, if you wanna take part in this masterclass, first of all, it's free.
It is FREE free.
So we're gonna be giving you some concepts, or 3 concepts. To help you enhance your communication skills in your relationships.
Yes.
So you don't want to miss it. Tonight at 7:30 p.m. It's going to be in our Marriage Matters Facebook community.
Yes. So it is
a Facebook group.
Yes. It's a private group.
Yeah.
We have some folks that are already over in there. If you're interested in joining, go find the Marriage Matters community. Mm-hmm. And request to join that page. In that page, you will be able to register for the masterclass that is happening tonight at 7:30 after this class, after this live or show or after this.
Yeah. At 7:30.
At 7:30.
Because this probably is not going to last until 7:30.
Correct.
So at 7:30. So what you want to do is, if you have not joined the group, go ahead and do that. Find the Marriage Matters community.
Yes.
And I'll try to put a link in the description or something like that. And then you want to go ahead and register for that free live webinar. It's the communication masterclass.
Yes.
So
if you have trouble with all of that, shoot us a message in Messenger on this page. Let us know in our Messenger and DM us and say, hey, I want to be a part of the masterclass that's happening tonight, Sunday, November 28th at 7:30 p.m. Let us know that you want to be a part of it, and we'll be checking after we wrap this up for anyone who's hanging out there in the DMs to get you in. All right. We'll see you there.
All right, cool then. So let's go and get into tonight's topic, which is keeping the main thing the main thing. So I will say that maybe this podcast may be a week short or a week late.
No, I don't think so. No? Because we're in the middle of the holiday season. It's just kicking off.
Well, and that's kind of what kind of sparked this was, we had a fabulous time hanging out with family for Thanksgiving. But that wasn't everybody's testimony. So I saw a lot of posts of people, having issues with family and all of that. So what we're talking about when we say keep the main thing is our marriage.
Yeah.
Our spouses. We want to keep them the main thing. We want to make sure that, especially in these times, we're making sure that they're the priority.
Right.
So many times, like I said, with family coming over, all these different personalities and power struggles could be some of that. Or maybe it's not because of the holidays. Maybe it's just...
That's just the nature of the relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
So we just want to talk about a couple of things and give you some tips and tricks that you may can use to...
keep the main thing the main thing.
Keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah. Right? So the first thing I want to talk about is one of the reasons why this is so important is because the ultimate goal, but in order to have a thriving marriage, you have to have connection.
You have to have it, yeah.
And what we found, we talked about this a little bit last week, I think it was, is that, the longer you spend together, so we've been married 20 years, so our connection that we have today is deeper than we had 20 years ago.
Right.
So your connection should deepen. But one of the things that will absolutely stop or hinder that connection is when you allow other people to become your priority in your relationship. And a lot of times that could be family, that could be friends.
It can be work. It can be other things that get in the way.
But tonight we want to talk about family.
Yeah, definitely.
So you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think we have to, as you said, we have to be mindful of it. We have to realize that, sometimes some people, when they get, they go back home, so to speak, or get around their family, or their family comes in. We have the tendency to go back into the roles that we played before we were married.
Yeah.
So whatever that role was, if you are the baby of the family and you were the center of attention and the focus, maybe when you get around your family members, you go back to that. Maybe there was a role reversal in your relationship with your parent, and you have been more of the caregiver and parent, so to speak, in that relationship. And so you kind of run into and tat-tat, meet all of their needs and all of that kind of stuff.
What? I like that word, tat-tat.
Oh, so
you tat-tat.
If you are from Louisiana, you know what that means. If not, I'm sorry. But
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so like you tend to make that other person's needs a priority and focus, solely and mainly on them. Maybe they need to be the center stage. You know what I mean? They need to hold center stage amongst everyone. And okay, that's all fine and good, except for if it is you are now pushing your spouse back from their first position, their position of priority in your life. And now you are replacing the role that they have now, that they should have, with someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I've even heard people put it this way. They say, I don't like my spouse when they're around their family.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
I don't like my spouse when they're around their friends.
Right.
Because like you said, they tend to revert back to those old roles or those old ways.
And they show up differently.
Yeah. They show up different. And the thing about that is sometimes, you know, we could be so engrossed in dysfunction. And we become so accustomed to dysfunction that we don't realize that it's dysfunctional.
Right. Because it's almost like you're fitting yourself back into this mold. You know what I mean? There's a set mold or this standard of behavior in this family unit. And when you come back into the fold, you just fit right back into the place that you were before, forgetting all of what you have evolved and developed to become outside of that space. But when you return to that space, you just automatically go back. So now where does that leave your spouse?
Yeah. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we are not making dysfunctionality and dysfunction. I don't know if that's a word, but we want to make sure that we're not making those dysfunctional behaviors normal. And when I say that, what I mean is, like you were saying, the child has to always be the one to take care of the parent. And I mean, we're not saying that if something happens,
that you don't take care of your parent, but it's kind of more of an emotional take care of than like if your parent was ill and needed that actual support. But it's kind of like making out mama or big mama or auntie feel like they are the center of all things. You know, we love them, we honor them, we respect them. I feel like I might get some hate mail after this, but we love them. We ain't scared. We honor them, we respect them, but not at the expense of our spouses.
And you know, a lot of times this can be around stuff like, you know, if you've decided not to go home for the holidays, and you know, it's like, well, why are you letting, you know, such and such control? You know, we're your family,
Why are you letting him or her keep you away from the family?
From your family? And what they have to understand is, you are my family, but this is my new family, and this family takes precedence.
It's my God ordained priority now.
And we never said that we don't love you, that we don't care about you, but this is something that and that's one thing you told me, is that you said you want to develop new traditions for our family. And that may not necessarily fit in with what we were accustomed to doing. And, you know, if your extended family can't understand that, then it's not up to you to make them comfortable or explain that if they can't understand that. Does that make sense? So we want to make sure that we are keeping things in perspective, you know. And when we look at the Word of God, you know, in Genesis, I think I have it written here, Genesis 2:24, it talks about how we are to leave our family of origin and create a new family. And it says a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. So what that's saying is that, I know I'm kind of belaboring the point, but I just want to let you see that it's nothing wrong with that. This is my new family. We want to create new traditions. We want to create a new way of doing things. Forgetting my way, your way, and creating our way. Yeah.
And I don't think that, you know, some people may say, well, what about tradition? Keep those old family traditions that are meaningful to the family. Yes, we want to keep those and pass those on to our children, but we also want to develop something that is new and that works for this new family. You know, so if there are certain, say, gatherings that your family has, that is very, I guess, beneficial to the family, and it passes on traditions to the younger generations that are really meaningful, then not saying that you don't do those things, but saying that when you do them, that your spouse doesn't feel like an outsider. You know, so nothing wrong with keeping those traditions. Nothing wrong, of course, with visiting family. We want to visit family. We want to be with family. We have missed our family family for 2 years almost.
Yeah.
And, so that's important. The point here being that we want to make sure that when you go to your family, your spouse doesn't feel like an outsider. When you go to his family, you don't feel like an outsider. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think, and again, I know we're kind of hammering this over and over, but it's just, I think it's more about the mindset. And we're not saying, like Tanya said, we're not saying that you can't go to those gatherings, you can't go to, but it's having the mindset that my spouse is the number one this relationship is the number one priority relationship outside of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. My wife is my number one priority. And there's no other relationship that I can allow to sever this connection, to come between us. The Bible says, therefore, with God, what God has joined together, let no man separate. Let no one separate. So there's no one else that can come between this. And what we're saying is that you have to prepare yourself sometimes for this, because around this time of year, there's a propensity for those type of things to happen. We've seen it time and time again. The arguments break out at the family reunion or the family get together, and this, because this person said this, whatever. But you have to develop that mindset. You have to keep that mindset. Keep the main thing the main thing. Keep the first thing the first thing. And in my life, the first thing is her. And we, I think I've told this story before on the podcast, but I'll tell it again just to kind of give you a good tangible example. But we have some friends, and he said that before he got married, he and his family would take this long road trip every year. And every year, his mom would sit in the front seat with him as they drove. And he said it was a good time. Him and his mom would chat, gave them time to, reconnect. And he said, well, then, he got married. So after they got married, they went on the road trip. Well, his mom, out of habit, got in the front seat. And maybe it wasn't even it just probably was out of habit. But he made it a point to tell his mom, it's like, whoa, you can't, that's my wife's seat. And you don't have that seat in my life anymore. And I think that's the mindset. A lot of times we allow other people, whether that's family, whether that's friends, whether that's children, whether that's work, whatever that is, we allow those people to have the passenger seat in our car when that seat belongs to our spouse.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Okay. You want nothing to add to that?
No.
Like, say something. So whenever you do that, whenever you put that relationship first, you ensure that there's a healthy balance, in relationships, and, I used to say this, and you may have seen these things before where it's these graphics where it's like, there's God, then there's like family, the order. But, one of the things I like to always say, when God is first, there are no seconds. But I understand with the hierarchy, but this is kind of the same principle. When this is okay, when this is kept in priority, then there's always it's like you automatically build in a healthy boundary in your relationship, in your marriage.
Right. I think that part, the boundary part, is what's important. For whatever reason, people have a negative connotation when it comes to boundaries. Like, people think that, when I'm setting a boundary, and that means that, whatever. That can mean that. But a healthy boundary also looks like that I respect my spouse enough. I respect my spouse, period. And I respect them and treat them well in front of other people, that I show other people how I expect my spouse to be treated. You know what I mean? So when I set that, because a boundary is for you, it's not for other people. So that means when I set a boundary within myself, then I am saying how I am going to show up in this particular situation, right? That's not necessarily for other people. So when I set the boundary of that I am going to require other people to respect my spouse, then that means that starts with me first. And so I'm going to respect my spouse and speak well to my spouse and of my spouse and treat my spouse well and all of those things. And so when other people outside of this marriage see me doing so, especially my family and my friends, they're going to understand that that is the expectation. And anytime they don't understand the expectation, then my boundary now expands to say, hey, we're not going to do that. This is my husband and I respect him. And I'm going to ask that if you love me or you respect me, that you also respect him.
That's really good. That's a good way to put that. If you love and respect me, you're going to love and respect him. And when you don't love and respect him, what you tell him is you don't love and respect me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really good. So when the marriage is replaced by any other relationship, then what usually happens is every relationship suffers when our relationship is not priority. And not only relationships, also emotionally we suffer, mentally we suffer. So that's why it's really key. It's like if the marriage if this is not right, then a lot of times 9 times out of 10, everything else is kind of off balance.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So what we want to do in the last maybe 5 or 10 minutes here is we want to give you some tips to reprioritize.
Yes.
Because again, what we're saying is all of the stuff that we're saying all goes back to one word, and it's priority. Keep the main thing.
Keep the main thing.
And when you don't set priorities in your life, that's what, even like, when you're making out your weekly schedule or your weekly agenda, if you don't put the big things in, then those big things are not going to happen. If those big things don't happen, a lot of times the little things don't happen. Right. So priority is key in relationships. All right. So it's not saying that you can't do all the other things, but you want to make sure that you do the necessary things before you do the other things. So number one is seek professional help.
Yes.
Ask for help.
That would be the first tip.
Because here's the deal. Sometimes you're so close to a situation, especially like when it comes to family and not making your spouse a priority, you don't see that sometimes because you're so close to it, or because it's always been that way. Like we said in the beginning of the podcast, sometimes we live in dysfunction for so long that the dysfunction becomes normal. And we don't know, we think that dysfunction is normal. Right.
We don't realize that we have gotten so adapted to dysfunction or chaos that that's what we're living in. Yeah. And anything outside of that feels strange. And so when we're talking about making these adjustments to prioritize your spouse, if that's something you have not done, then you may need some professional assistance with processing with going through that process. Yeah. So someone that can give you some bumpers and some guidance as to how to make that happen successful and healthily. Healthfully.
Man, we just having issues with the words today.
Okay, it's all good.
But and the other thing is, someone like a counselor or a coach or a pastor or someone who is we gave you these last week. Yeah. Who loves you, who loves your spouse, who loves God and is for your marriage. Yes. So that's your qualifiers there. But sometimes they can help you get to the root of the dysfunction.
And you want to make sure that these people are equipped, that they are trained and equipped to do to help as well.
Right. So they can help you get to the root of the dysfunction, because sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes it's like you're just trimming the branches back, but then they're going to grow back over time. So you need to get down to the root, and whatever the emotional baggage that comes along with that, the past experience that caused that tree to grow, you need to get to the root of that. What is that? And that'll help you to help. You won't be able to set priorities properly until you do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. The other thing is setting healthy boundaries.
Which we've kind of talked about already.
But you want to talk about it a little bit more?
Just being able to set those boundaries so that people understand where you are, like in your marriage, in your relationship, understanding that when we are in those family gatherings or with friends, that you are not making jokes or things about your spouse that makes them uncomfortable or look unfavorable. And so now you're putting them in a compromising position where they feel disrespected or dishonored and things like that. You know, setting those boundaries that you're only speaking well of them, you're only encouraging them, you're making sure, you know, that you treat them just as well, if not better, you know, in that setting with those other family members, not allowing other people to say, you know, mean things or slight little jokes joking things that people can say about another person, not allowing your family and your friends to say those things about your spouse and correcting it in the moment. It doesn't have to be anything mean or, you know, like cause a full-blown argument, you know, depending on who you're talking to, I guess. But you can say it in a way that say, hey, you know, we're not going to do that. You know, I'm not comfortable with you doing that. And I feel like you owe my husband an apology, you know.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to talk about with boundaries is people will take as much access as you give them.
Absolutely.
So it's really important for you to set those boundaries up in your relationships to know that we talked about it last week, you know, where do you draw the line? It was kind of different, but kind of the same thing, you know, what's this is a boundary that, you know, I'm not going to allow people to cross because, you know, it's just like a natural boundary. You know, if you have a piece of property and it's a shortcut to the convenience store, best believe people are going to walk across your property to get there. But if you put up a barrier there, it makes them go around. So that's kind of what we're saying, you know, within your relationships, in your marriage, to set up boundaries, and that you dictate to people how they relate to you. You don't allow people to take liberty in your marriage and in your relationship. Right.
And not oversharing. That was something else that came to mind too, that when you're in those settings, you know, us sharing personal information, and if we are going through challenges, whether that's in the relationship or financial or any other thing, that we also are very protective of the nature of our relationship and what's happening in that relationship, that we don't just go out and share those things with people who are not going to also protect that space. You know, if there are challenges in your relationship, oftentimes you two will get over them over time, but your friends and family may not, you know, and so you also have to be mindful of that. Yes, everyone needs a safe space to go, but you have to ensure, as Glenn said earlier, that whoever that safe space is, that they love, not only love you, they love your spouse, they love God, and they are for your marriage.
And then you said they're qualified.
And they are qualified, yes. And, you know, qualified doesn't necessarily always mean degreed, but qualified means that you have some experience, you have some wisdom, you know, you have the ability to communicate with some grace, you know, so yes, qualified, and they can mean many of things. So anyway.
So the last thing we want to say is, our last tip we want to give you is, be willing to take drastic actions. Yeah. So what is drastic? Drastic is drastic. I mean, whatever it takes. You know, do you want to save your marriage? Do you want, you know, sometimes, and I know those are extreme circumstances, but I've seen it to where it comes down, you got to choose. Who are you going to choose your spouse, or are you going to choose this other person? And sometimes people will force you into those type of decisions.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but absolutely.
And you could say, I don't want to do this, but if I have to choose, and I choose, you know, my spouse.
I'm going to choose Glenn every time.
I read this one article with Dave Willis from The Naked Marriage. And he was saying that, you know, he's saying it to where in this circumstance that some people have to relocate. Yeah. You know, it one of the shows that Tanya and I like to watch is Everybody Loves Raymond. And they live right across the street from Ray's mom.
From Ray's parents, yeah.
And I always say, man, I just need to relocate, you know, because she definitely doesn't have
Marie
have boundaries.
Not have any boundaries. And she does not like you to set them with her either.
No. So, but I mean, you know, and so that's one of the things that we often talk with our premarital couples about is, how far are you going to live from your parents? Or how involved do you want your parents to be? How comfortable are you with your spouse's parents being involved in? So, going through all that stuff ahead of time, because this is the stuff that comes up.
Right.
And this is the stuff that I've seen it ruin marriages.
Right. And there are people who have very healthy relationships and boundaries with their family members, their in-laws, their siblings, and all of this. And it just, they make it work, but there's a mutual respect there. There is a love there. There's not, typically in those families, I see where that's son-in-law is accepted as a son. You know what I mean? He's now not just my brother-in-law, but my brother. And so there are people who are able to bridge those gaps and have these healthy boundaries, these beautiful relationships across the board. And I'm sure those are things for some people that they have to work on. For some people, it comes natural, but you're the only one that can really assess where you and your family are and where you want to be. That was one of our prayers when we got married, that, we were not, we were marrying one another. Yes. But we were also marrying into one another's families and wanting our families to be not just like in-laws, but to be family across the board, so that is possible.
Yeah. So, in closing, we want you to know that, you should, we're not saying that you shouldn't love your family. You should love your family, but you should love them from a healthy place.
Yes.
And so if that's not happening, reach out, get help, and try to figure out why that is. So we hope you got something out of that.
Yes.
As always, we always appreciate all of the follows, likes, and shares. You can follow us on Facebook, Marriage Matters 0526, and on Instagram, Marriage Matters 0526. Yep. On YouTube, Marriage Matters. And you can find the Marriage Matters podcast, the audio version of the Marriage Matters podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Anchor Podcasts, pretty much everywhere that podcasts are found, we can be found.
Yes.
And so in closing, we want to remind you again of tonight, in about maybe 45-ish minutes or so, something like that, maybe more like, I don't know.
At 7:30.
At 7:30 tonight, November 28th, we're going to do a communication masterclass on the Marriage Matters community group page. So if you're not a member of that group, go ahead and join that group. Once you join, you can register for the free communication masterclass. So it's a free webinar. We're going to have a good time. Going to give you some good information. Going to give you some concepts for becoming skillful communicators.
Yes.
All right. So if you need it, that's one of the things we always ask couples. What do you need help in? What do they always say? Communication.
Yes, we need help communicating. Yeah. We need help communicating.
So we want to help. Yes. So we'll see you there tonight, 7:30 p.m. In the Marriage Matters community Facebook group. All right.
We will be there.
So that's all we got for you this week. So this is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that
your marriage matters.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
And tonight.
7:30.
All right. Bye.